6, 2023. Commissioner Mason will lead us in the pledge, and Commissioner Winters will lead us in prayer. If you would, please stand.
Pray. Father, we thank you so much for sunshine.
Amen. Thank you so much. All right, members and mayor, I'm going to change the agenda a little bit. As you well know, we always move around to accommodate when we have visitors from out of town. So where you see on the agenda item, or actually you see budget amendments, we usually take those up after the mayor's report. We're going to go straight to the agenda items, item A, and go from there, then circle back to the mayor's report, budget amendments, and then pick up back into the agenda. We have a guest from Knoxville. We want to honor his time, and if he wants to stay, he's more than welcome to stay. If he wants to head back to Knoxville, that's him, on him. So with that, go to item A on the agenda, swap agreements, pages 94 through 97. I'll ask Mr. Bessemer to introduce him to give us an overview, or Mayor, if you want to, and then we'll open up the floor for questions.
Well, that's all right, Chris. If you'd come onto the podium, just start out and explain what it is we're talking about in the simplest terms possible that I can understand, okay?
They ran into various complications in actually converting or terminating those contracts, and so they extended that deadline, which is now June 30th of this year. So before you is a resolution that would authorize the county to terminate its existing interest rate swap. By doing so, it would remove all exposure of the county to LIBOR, and it would have nothing to do with LIBOR any further. The cost of this termination is expected to be about $530,000 total cost. That includes the cost of the termination plus the advisor and legal cost to actually terminate. It is essentially basically a prepayment of interest that you would otherwise continue to pay on this debt until it matures in a few years anyways. It's just you would be paying that now, and the loan would revert back to just pure variable at the time. So that's a lot there, and maybe it might be good for me to pause here and just see if there's any questions.
Thank you, Chris, or Mr. Let me ask a few questions and I'll open it up. In here, in the explanation, and as well as in our audit, Sevier County is mentioned. Can you elaborate on that? Because talking to the auditors is, well, I might as well ask them the meaning of life because can't get an answer. So we're in an agreement with Sevier County on this.
Correct, yeah.
Can you-
So I won't answer the meaning of life for you.
well, that's
but,
the auditors.
I do have to go back a little bit in time there. I won't go all the way back to Genesis, but
Yeah.
going back to basically state law in the 70s had an issue that said that any municipal entity, city, county, cannot do what's called a negotiated bond issue directly unless it's a refunding. Okay, when the BEP went into effect back in the late 90s, early 2000s, the county had its school building program that it had to undertake. The commission at the time elected to do variable rate debt. Variable rate debt by its nature is considered negotiated instead of going out for competitive public sale. So the state, 40 plus years ago now, created a method to be able to do that, and it was to use a conduit issuer. So you could either use Public Building Authority or an industrial development board or some other kind of governmental entity like that, but you could not do variable rate directly.
And that's their housing authority
Correct.
that they mentioned. Okay.
Yeah. So Public Building Authority of Sevier County was created to basically allow other governmental entities to take loans through it. So it just serves as a conduit issuer, but it is technically the counterparty to the swap, but it has nothing. It has no financial guarantees. It's all done through a loan agreement with Bradley County. So Bradley County pays the bank, the trustee, all the debt service, and the bank then pays the bondholders and the counterparty the principal and interest on the loan. Sevier County Public Building Authority is just a conduit issuer, nothing more. The reason to use the Sevier County, so the next question might be, why are we using Sevier County instead of our own Public Building Authority? And the reason for that is all the administrative cost and the creation cost of going into establishing a public building authority. We helped create one, and instead of doing it everywhere that wanted one and increasing cost, we were able to work with the Sevier County Public Building Authority, and they agreed to be a conduit issuer for other governmental entities.
Economies of scale. And
It's completely economies of scale. That's right.
But this also terminates our relationship with respect with Sevier County. This is all about a termination and renewal, right?
It's termination of the interest rate swap agreement. So your loan agreement with the PBA of Sevier County and the PBA, you've got one with Blount County as well. There were two public building authorities that were used. You would still have your loans outstanding with both of them.
The next one, real quick, is this is just for the E6A. It references that bond. There's no other bonds that are under this LIBOR switch. This is the only one.
Correct.
Because we have others. And by taking this up today, it'll be voted on here today and moved over to the full commission. Your timeline of 6/30/23 is not in jeopardy.
By taking it on February 20th, no, it is not.
Okay. That's all I have for this part. Yeah. Anybody else have any? Commissioner Winters?
What is the $535,000? What are we paying? That's money we owe. It's all one lump sum. You said we're paying X dollars, right, to make this happen?
Yes, and it will depend, Commissioner Winters, it's going to depend basically on where the market is on the day we are able to do the termination. So that number goes up and down a little bit.
Right.
But most of that is the termination value of this interest rate swap agreement. So instead of paying it out over the next through 2026, basically paying it in this fiscal year. So so long as variable rates maintain where they are, you should see a decrease in your interest costs going forward.
And our debt rate, our debt would be
Debt
down
service,
$535,000. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll pay it out of debt services. This whatever.
It doesn't really decrease our debt. It decreases the amount of interest we'll pay over the next 4 years.
Right. But all the package put together, the principal, interest, and fee, all that's going to be paid out of debt service 151. We don't have to re-budget anything in the next budget year for this, I don't think.
When we get to the closing of it, we may end up having to do an amendment somewhere because that interest that we're saving is not all in this budget year, so we may have to amend this year's up for the savings over the next 3 years, but we'll do that after they close when we know for sure how much and all.
But we have a healthy fund balance of 151. 13.
The main thing to remember, if I can add, is if we go, there's two options, as they said, or do nothing, but we
Yeah.
can't do nothing really. But the other option costs more in real money. This one costs, but basically it's not costing, it's just prepaying. So it is money that we weren't expecting to spend now, but it's money we would have spent. Whereas with go with the other option, the state hasn't finalized everything, so we really don't know what all hoops we're gonna have to jump through to go with the other option, plus it will cost more. Does that make sense? A lot more fees and attorneys and all those things.
And other counties are going through this same exercise, I assume, right?
Yes, sir. Cities and counties.
Yeah.
There's a number of them.
Knox County just did it, I believe, didn't they, or in the process?
Knox County just adopted the same resolution. They adopted it about 2 weeks ago.
Commissioner Slater.
Are you ready for a motion to move forward?
Sure, if you're ready to give a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with the termination of the swap agreement.
I have a motion from Commissioner Slater. I have a second from Commissioner Winters. Any other discussion? We kind of did the discussion before we did the motion, but that's how we do it in Bradley County sometimes.
Oh, we needed to hear from our specialist here. Yeah.
We were so anxious. All right. Any other? I do want to make sure all questions. And just to give you a timeline, tonight I'll put it on the agenda for the February 20th voting session. And Mr. Bressler, I say your name wrong. I'm sorry. Has agreed to come back for the full commission. Right. Don't leave though. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. We don't get to see you too often, so I'm obviously take advantage of you. Obviously, the interest rates, you see it on the news all the time. In fact, we saw it last week. How does that affect us? And you can be very abstract with your answer, but from what I hear, there's one or two more, but obviously at a lower point, 0.25 or something like that. We're getting ready to vote on our budget calendar here in a sec. How does that, the variable rate, the feds affect us as we go into the budget process? On our debt.
On your existing debt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have two variable rate loans outstanding. One is based on the secured overnight funding rate, which is the new alternative to LIBOR. That's the one we amended 2020 to that. That rate is probably in the high threes right now. Expectation would be that rate would be coming down maybe mid to late next year. So after the Fed continues their rate increase to get the economy to slow down and inflation to slow down, the market seems to be pricing in that rates would be coming back down after early next year. Now, whether that happens or not, I can't.
Yeah.
I quit trying to predict rates a decade ago when I thought they had to go up and
Fair.
they stayed at 0 6 more years. But the other loan that the county has is just traded in the open market. It has a Truist Bank letter of credit, and that one is trading closer to about 2.25% right now, and so that's been trading down as well lately. So in terms of the county's debt service, it would be prudent to budget, probably 4% as you go forward, 4 to 5%. So you want to budget more than where you think it's likely to hit during the year, and then if it comes in lower, you can do what you've done for 20 plus years, and you take that and you put it to your debt service fund balance. You get more cushion in following years.
That was the main part of my question, was the spread between the actual and projected budgeting. Do we need to increase that since it's going up? Obviously, the difference between the two is slimmed down. But what your opinion is what we've been budgeting a little bit more than what the projection is should be fine in the 23-24 budget.
I believe so.
All right,
You've been using kind of 4% budget rate on that.
Right.
And you also have where you're able to, what we've not had for many, many years, is the ability to take your fund balance that you have and invest that at a rate that's actually higher than what you're paying. So you can
Oh,
keep that. So you've got treasuries right now that are 4.25%, 4.50, up to 4.60, 4.70%. So you're able to invest higher than what you're paying out on some of that.
that's good news. Any other questions? Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming.
Pleasure. Thank you. Thank
Be-
you
be
again
safe.
for the
Thank
courtesy at
you.
the top of the agenda. Appreciate
Now,
that.
go back to Knoxville, I guess. Be safe.
All right.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, going back to our agenda. Report from the county mayor. Mayor Davis, you are recognized.
Thank you. First of all, your credit card report, fire department used once, all good. Assessor used 3 times, all good. Sheriff used twice, all good. County mayor didn't use. EMA used 5 times. Twice was locally, but for emergency purchases, so otherwise all good. Since we last met, we have audits all throughout the year. I don't know if you realize it or not, but we just had a, what do you call it when they leave? An IT audit, exit meeting on an IT audit. I wanted to give you on the IT audit for the Department of Misdemeanor Probation. Rich, it's a good thing it came in good because you'd be in trouble right now. No findings were noted for misdemeanor probation, and the IT audit for the Department of Accounts and Budgeting, no findings were noted either. So that's 2 more of the many audits throughout the year. That's the only thing I have to report right now. Everything else on the agenda.
All right, any questions for the mayor? Seeing none. All right, going into our budget amendments. Budget number 1 from the road department. They are decreasing expenses and basically increases from its, what are they doing here? $3,300. And this is to pay for unemployment compensation from the Department of Labor. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment? I have a motion from Commissioner Slater. I have a second from Commissioner Winters. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Passes 5-0. There you see supporting documentation. That takes us to page 4. Decreasing expenses, increase in the same fund, 2 different accounts, $1,600. This is for state aid. I did ask when they're going to be reimbursed from the state. She did not know the answer to that at this time. That'll come into effect, I guess, when budgeting. Renee, if the state doesn't reimburse her in this current budget, she has to basically recognize the revenue in the next budget, but she can't spend the money in the next budget because she already spent it in this budget. Is that fair? In other words, she has to PO it to a certain degree, right?
You can't PO your revenue.
Or her expense.
If it comes in,
Her expense.
if
And
it comes in before she closes her year out, just like with me, if it comes in, like say in July, she's going to have to do it as a receivable for the prior year.
but after the budget, when we start the new budget, the state comes in with their revenue for this expense. The expense happened in the current budget at this point in time.
Well, she's covering it from another expense line. I mean, you could ask them to not spend that money.
But my point is, the revenue that she gets has already been spent, even though she's paying it from another line.
She can do it as a receivable.
So, from what I also understand on this is that the state has to inspect the project before that they will. The state has to inspect it, so who knows when they're going to pay it. Anyway, Chairman Cry.
Thank you. Just pulled up on the map. Isn't this the same road that the city acquired on the non-contiguous annexation all the way through there?
Pleasant Grove Bridge.
These
Pleasant
are
Grove.
talking about the same road.
Attached.
I don't know the answer to that, Commissioner Cry, Chairman Cry. We can get that answer and get it.
No problem. If it's a
Is
problem, if it's an
The
issue,
state,
then-
ultimately, the state's paying for it, but I'll get your point. who should be doing the work. I don't know. Lori, if you can help me out, remind me to look into that, and we'll get an answer. Till then, she's moving $1,600 from one line to another. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment? I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Alford. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. And there's the supporting documentation. Page 6. From the mayor's office, he is moving money from one line to another, communications to $499 of $2,000. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment as presented? I have a motion from Commissioner Slater. I have a second from Commissioner Mason. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Page 7, also the county mayor. He's decreasing expenses. This is in 189, all right? This is capital projects, not general fund. 50,000, and this is for the Dooley Street renovation.
If I
And-
could explain there,
have a
you
motion?
have in the budget,
I'll say, I got a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Slater. It's Mayor Davis.
you have in the budget 100,000 for the parking lot, which we're not gonna need all of that, so I'm moving half of it in the same budget, but to a different line to keep them separate so we can get the Dooley Street finished.
Yeah, Dooley Street's been on the radar for quite some time, right?
Yeah, and we're doing it half at a time so they can still use the building, so it's making it take a lot longer. Right now, they're doing the living room and kitchen. They've gutted it and putting it back. When they get through, then the next project will be gutting the rest of it and then putting it back. And that way they can still occupy half of the building. But we need more money to do that last phase, and there's plenty in this line here, so I'm moving half of it over. The parking lot's still gonna get done. We're in the process of getting the estimates, but they're gonna fit in the amount that's left.
Right, we have a motion, we have a second. Do I have any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Also, the county mayor's office, decrease in fund balance from 128. This is art money, 865,000, and he's going into this is for the septic program, for the program and the administrative cost of 115. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment? I have a motion from Commissioner Slater. I have a second from Commissioner Winters. Any further discussion? Seeing none?
This is just setting up the budget so we can spend that money.
Yeah, we just had to move the money in. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Then we get into Tri-State, also a different fund, Fund 124. They have a building project that their fund balance is healthy enough that they can handle, so they want to move 75,000 out of their fund balance over into their expense for a building project. Not quite. You talked to them about the building project. Do I have a motion? I have a motion from Commissioner Alford. I have a second from Commissioner Winters. Mayor, want to speak to it?
One of the things they're doing is a complete painting job of the big covered arena, and they're doing all they can out of their existing capital money that they raise, but they're a little short, and their fund balance is ahead of schedule, so this is using one-time money from the fund balance, putting it in there so they can use it to finish that painting job. And it will leave the fund balance sufficient.
Please.
What is the recreational AG center? What is it?
Well, that's the line, I guess technically the revenue line, that money that comes in from hotel motel tax goes in there to fund Tri-State.
Right.
And then we take that and put it in a Tri-State budget.
Yeah.
And so that fund balance, if you spend a little less than it brings in every year, that fund balance grows, and it's grown somewhat, so that's why they're asking to spend this.
That entire complex is recreational AG center.
Our portion, mainly our money is just for operations.
Okay.
We have a Tri-State budget for operations. They have their own fund where they take money from what they do down there and put it in a fund, and that's where they pay for the buildings and so forth. That's why there wasn't already money for this.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Next amendment is from Finance. This is to finish up the bill for the legal services on the lawsuit. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment? I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from, who's going to second this? Second from Commissioner Slater. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Next budget amendment, Renee, is this multiple ones? Let me see. This is
first one
drug
here,
court all the way to, there's 3 amendments we can take as a package like we do
11,
services
11
rendered,
and 12.
pages 12 through 49.
these are 3 different grants. They're different grants.
We can still
This
take them
one
as,
is a new grant.
11,
This first one is a new grant.
that's 11.
And then the other ones are increases in salary on the other 2 grants.
Okay.
right, we can still take it as a package. Unless somebody objects to that.
Is there objection from y'all on that?
You-
Or is there a problem? Not take them both together? Is there a reason to separate it out?
It's up to you.
Right.
That's
Well-
What do you think?
Let's do it right, because I was just telling Commissioner Cry what happens when we do things wrong. Which one's, the first one is the amendment to 150. That's the new
Page
grant?
12 through 36 is creating the budget that, where we got this grant, and it's putting it in a budget form so it can be spent out.
I was just trying to speed up. So the first amendment is 158,400. That is money coming in, increasing her revenue, and she's itemized her expenses all the way through. And then she has her supporting documentation on the grant, 158,400. That takes you all the way to, what'd you say, Mayor?
Page 36.
30, 37? So, yep, so pages 12 through 36 is the amendment and supporting documentation. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment as presented? I have a motion from Commissioner Alford, I have a second from Commissioner Winters. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no, passes 5-0. That takes us to page 37.
37 through 41 is a different grant, adult drug court, the recovery court, and it's just, it's increasing revenue by 13,000, putting it in the proper lines.
And you can see the description there. Governor Lee added additional funds for a 10% cost of living increase for recovery court. How nice. So,
Wow.
do I have a motion to accept the amendment? And we're looking at pages 37 through 41. I have a motion from Commissioner Slater. I have a second from Commissioner Winters. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Then we get to pages 42 through pages 49. It's the same concept there, but I think it's going into a different account.
Veterans treatment
Yeah, it's a
court.
different account for veterans. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment as presented? I have a motion from Commissioner Slater. I have a second from Commissioner Winters. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0.
That's through
Then we
40.
get into community corrections. She's increasing her expenses and decreasing expenses. What?
Just moving
Oh, she's
money.
$250 adjustment to printing projects. I have a motion to accept the amendment. I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Alford. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Next amendment on page 51. She's pretty much doing the same thing. 3,500. She's going from one line to another. 336 to 599. I have a motion to accept the amendment. I have a motion from Commissioner Mason. I have a second from Commissioner Winters. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Next budget amendment on page 52. Now we're into the fire fund, 121. He's moving money out of his fund balance, $37,465, and putting it into maintenance and repairs. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment? I have a motion from Commissioner Slater. I have a second from Commissioner Alford.
Medical emergency with a
Oh.
sister-in-law of mine in surgery, so they're telling me back.
No, you're
I
good.
can't get
Yeah.
it off. Right.
Mrs. Hughes, yeah. All right, where were we? Oh, you want to chat? You have something to
I just
to
want to
this?
add to that, to tell Renee to make sure that before this amendment occurs, that PO is killed. Because he's asking for the amendment because he's going to kill a PO, and that will put money back in the fund balance, and now you're bringing it out.
That's a good point, honestly.
I have a
The,
question.
yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. Commissioner Slater, please.
Mayor, will this money last him to July for repairs?
Possibly not, but it will for a while.
Does he have more money he can pull from if this doesn't last him?
Probably, yes, ma'am. As we get to closer to the year, we'll see.
So the point, I guess, Mayor, well, it's not for Mayor, it's for everybody. Obviously with 121, it's its own tax rate. And you can't give them any more money, you can't take away any money. So what they have is what they have. I guess they've had engine repairs or something to that effect. Anyway.
And they're doing a series of them now. The next 3 or 4 is the same thing, and there'll probably be another series come April or May. But usually they're able to do it within by moving around, and hopefully they will.
Do I have a motion and a second on this? I forgot. I don't. I have a motion from Commissioner Alford. I have a second from Commissioner Mason. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Thank you, Commissioner Winters. Moving on to the next one. There you see the supporting documentation, page 54. Also, we're still in the fire fund, and it's basically the same concept. He's moving money out of. Well, this one he's not moving money from the fund balance. I'm sorry. He's moving from communications over to maintenance and repair building 1,000. What?
He's taking it from 4 different line items and putting more money in the vehicle line.
He's the
more
one that likes to do multiple sections on a page. And we're used to just one expense, one revenue. Yeah, see, he likes that. He does multiple. I gave him credit for not using up too much paper, but throws us off. All right, so 5,000, he's decreasing the expense from the communication, and he's decreasing expenses from 335. That's a total of 10,000 there. He's decreasing expenses from custodial supplies of 1,200. So now we're at 11,200. He's decreasing expenses from 429, 451, and 499. And that totals up to 31,700 that he is putting in maintenance and repairs. So he's moving a lot of money from other lines into one for maintenance and repairs. He must have a lot of repairs. I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Mason. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. That takes us to page 57. The illustrious trustee's office. He is moving 1,000 from one line to another. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment? I have a motion from Commissioner Slater. I have a second from Commissioner Alford. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Second amendment from the trustee's office. Also moving money from 435 to 399, $685. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment? I have a motion from Commissioner Alford. I have a second from Commissioner Winters. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Then we get into page 59. Gotta keep track. Right there. Election Commission. She is decreasing expenses out of her communication and putting it into accounting, the CPA firm of $960. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment? I have a motion from Commissioner Slater. I have a second from Commissioner Winters. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Election Commission. Was that page 60? Yeah, we're on page 60. She is moving money from communications, $428, and it's going into maintenance and repairs for the Embry Consulting. Embry is the Voter Central database, by the way. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment? I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Mason. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Also, another amendment from the Election Commission, moving money from communications over to advertising, $328. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment as presented? I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Mason. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Then we get into an amendment. She is moving money from election workers line over to 106, the deputies line of $8,054.69. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment? I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. Do I have a second? I have a second from Commissioner Mason. Any further discussion?
This is
Commissioner.
supporting staffing, funds needed to support staffing to complete the fiscal year, and I'll do this, okay. Does she need another person? Correct. Support
I
staffing.
don't think she's getting a new person. I think
Changing titles.
I think from what I understand, best of my knowledge, which is not good, is that they've switched from who is full-time and who is part-time. They used to have one individual who was part-time and one who was full-time, and they basically have switched. Now the person who used to be part-time is now full-time, and the person who was full-time is now part-time.
Okay.
But I guess their salaries are different. I'm asking. Anyway, we have a Commissioner Alford.
They did.
Good.
We never underfunded election workers. Election day was never affected. They had plenty of money there, and this proved it, but this is moving it to their day-to-day salaries.
Lori, will you remind me to, we'll take a look at that during the budget hearings? All right, do I have a motion and a second, right? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Also moving from data processing, $1,050 into the same line, 106. Have a motion to accept the amendment as presented. Have a motion from Commissioner Winters. Have a second from Commissioner Alford. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Communications is $700. Communications,
Communication.
yeah. $700 is coming out of communications over to 106 deputies. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment? I have a motion from Commissioner, who wants it? Commissioner Winters. Commissioner Alford is a second.
Oh, well,
I'll take you as a second and then recognize you.
Enough money to start with. I'm turned it on. We got what, 3 things here? For those 2 people are you talking about? You explained it a while ago.
That's what I've been told. Is that they switched the employees from full-time, like I just said, from full-time to part-time and from part-time to full-time.
That should be the same amount of money though, shouldn't it?
I guess they found it in their budget. From their point of view, I believe what they're telling me is that they will not go over their budget, the entire budget, but how they do it within the lines is what they're doing.
They're moving full-time to part-time.
To me, that money should have been swapped the same.
If they were paid the same,
Yeah.
they're not.
So somebody getting a big raise?
I think somebody's going from part-time to full-time. I don't know if you would call it a raise because
Part-time to full-time, but then you're taking a full-time to a part-time. Is that understanding?
that's what I was told.
So wouldn't it balance out?
Not necessarily.
For payroll.
At the hourly rate. Look, Renee, what do you? I don't know. I don't know their.
I'm not sure what the difference
I don't
is
know
in the
their
two
wages.
people's
I don't know
pays.
how much they make per hour. They're both non-exempt, right?
They're not non-exempt, they don't meet the qualifications, which is you had to hit a salary mark and you
No,
had to.
exempt means you're exempt from FLSA. No,
If
they're
you're
hourly.
exempt from overtime, yes,
they can get overtime.
yes,
All right, so they're not exempt.
they're non-exempt, yes, I'm sorry, I processed it wrong. I'm not sure what the salary is of the person who's going from full-time to part-time and vice versa. I think they're trying to make sure that that line does not go overdrawn for the end of the year.
Well, hello. We're just chatting with you.
But I thought that I could come here and answer questions.
Very good. Commissioner Alford has a question for you, if you want to catch your breath, though.
Yeah, sorry.
I was questioning the switching of the funds needed for support staffing from switching from a part-time to a full-time and another going from full-time to a part-time. Is that correct?
That is one change that we made, yes. So I'm
So wouldn't the money's been the same?
clear it up. Originally, I was supposed to take a full-time position, but due to some issues regarding another employee needing the insurance and benefits, I volunteered to give them that full-time position. I took a part-time position. So we made the changes here recently to switch me to the full-time position. But everyone was paid hourly. We were not, our full-time was not paid at a salary rate. So the hourly pay is different for the two employees that were switched.
That would be,
Please.
so that would be the differences of funding we're talking about here. We're trying
Right.
to see.
Right.
To us, it looked like if you move from one to the other, it would be the same money.
Well, and to clear up some things, so I have already spoken with Mayor Davis. I've been taking over a lot of the like paying bills and the accounting processes. So there were a lot of things that hadn't necessarily been done, how, budget amendments and paying things out of the proper line items and things like that. So a lot of this was moving money because we had been paying certain things out of wrong line items.
Yeah.
So that money has just been taken out of other places, and now we're just trying to make everything correct. I'm trying to, make processes, everything paid out of the right things, so the auditors are happy, and fixing things to make sure everything's how it should look.
Mm-hmm. Over here, Commissioner Slater, Commissioner Mason, Commissioner Alford.
So you've gone from full-time to part-time.
I went from part-time to full-time.
Okay, and the other lady went from
Full-time
full-time
to
to
part-time.
part-time. Which one is on the hourly side of salary now?
Well, that was the thing is, even though she was full-time, she was not paid salary
Right.
because we didn't know how permanent it would be. So she was still paid at an hourly rate, along with me at part-time being paid at an hourly rate. Now, we've switched those, and our hourly rates are different. So that was why it wasn't just an eye for an eye switch.
So both of you are now paid hourly.
They were always paid hourly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So you're-
basically, the full-time position for elections was paid at an hourly rate instead of salary, because the circumstances that we weren't sure how long she would remain in the full-time role.
So that
So-
you picked up a lot of extra duties, it sounds like, listening to you a minute ago. So you're gonna be paid hourly for those extra duties?
Starting this pay period, I have been made salary. After being made the full-time, we've now set my salary, which was basically the hourly pay rate that I was making, but set at the 40 hours a week. That's, sorry, I didn't mean to confuse you.
I'm easily
Me too.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Slater, please.
So you're an exempt employee now and not eligible for overtime?
You just said
I'm
you're.
going to assume that I'm salary, full-time employee.
Commissioner Slater, no.
Mm-hmm.
I
That's
don't-
right.
To be an exempt employee, you've got to meet a salary cap and you have to have the authority to hire and fire. That's FSLA rules, so she's not exempt. So if she works more than her 40 hours, now we only work 71 hours in a 2-week pay period, so you've got to work that extra 9 hours to get 80. If she were to work more than that, she would be in an overtime status.
So she's full-time, non-exempt.
That's correct.
Full-time, hourly, non, that, as you and I know, the terms get interchanged. A lot of people think that
Because they're
hourly and
salary.
salary, I wish they would never do those two words because they don't really mean anything legally. There's only two classifications, non-exempt and exempt. You are hourly, non-exempt.
Okay.
You
Um,
pay FLSA, which requires that a 40-hour work week pay period, time and a half after 40 hours in the pay period, and minimum wage, which you're under, you're correct, right. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, well, yeah, let me get back to you, and, you're good? Chairman Cry, then Chairman Alford. I mean,
I'm a little bit confused, which is not unusual.
Not the
You,
best
are
at
you
explaining things.
are you currently part-time or full-time?
As of right now, I am the full-time employee for election.
What category is the other person?
Part-time.
Part-time. All right, the reason I bring the question up, we get into the number of hours worked and benefit.
Yes.
Okay, how many hours does the part-time employee work?
Right now, 20.
Commissioner Alford or Commissioner Winters?
First of all, thank you for coming here.
Yeah,
That
sorry,
was
I was
nice,
late.
and I had to run. And what is your title? What do you do?
Assistant Administrator of Election.
Because she's in the deputy line.
Yeah. Good. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Mayor Davis, please.
Thank you, Rachel. Sorry to put you through this again.
That's okay.
She's trying to straighten out and not have what happened last year on June the 30th happen again. But I want to add two things. First of all, we don't work 40-hour weeks, so there's no extra, but it's not overtime. The only people that get paid overtime are emergency service people. Everybody else is supposed to be comp time. You only get comp time if you work over 80 hours. And as a rule, nobody does. I have to explain that all the time to people. She's heard this before, but so be careful when you're talking about overtime. We don't pay overtime, we pay comp time. And except for emergency service workers, the law requires them to be paid overtime. But usually people, even if she has to work 2 hours extra every day this week, she will not go over 80 hours. You see what I'm saying? It may be more than normal, but not to put us in the overtime or comp time category.
Apologies.
Rachel,
I don't know all the correct.
You're fine, but you do fill out a timesheet and submit a timesheet that's signed by the administrator.
Yes.
Right, you punch in, punch out.
Now, as of this pay period, from what I've talked with Tracy, I no longer fill out the timesheet because, and salary may not be the right word here, so correct me. I get paid a set rate every 2 weeks.
You still have
That,
to fill
that's,
out a timesheet.
yeah, that's true, but you still do a timesheet showing that you worked every day this week.
Then yes,
Or if
I
you're
will
on
fill out a
vacation, yeah.
timesheet.
So
Sorry,
she still
I'm
will.
learning
I
here the
kinda
same
knew
as
the
you.
answer
Like,
already.
I'm just trying to catch
So-
up.
And we appreciate you, Rachel. We're not trying to pick on you. It's,
But yes, I will fill out a timesheet, but I do not go over the 40
I have
hour,
another
or the
question.
80 hours for the
another
time, the pay
Commissioner
period.
Slater.
How many part-time employees are in the election commission?
We have 2 part-time employees.
Thank you.
and they,
You have two
from here
full-time.
on, will be working no more than the amount that's in the budget for the total year, right?
We are moving this money, and this is part of the question that I think you brought up earlier, Mayor Davis. The issue is, and I don't want to get into all the budgeting stuff, but the issue is that our office staff is less than what we need to run. 1 full-time and 1 part-time, especially looking at other counties and what they have as their office staff. It's unrealistic. Now, I understand we'll have budgeting meetings and things like that, and Fran's working on a whole thing to present to you guys the argument and present all the facts for that. So, at the end of the day, our office staff has a lot of duties and responsibilities that come down from the state level. We have to fulfill those. They're not negotiable. They're from the state. And at the end of the day, we have to meet those. So we do have 2 part-time employees to help aid in meeting those requirements. Cuts in other areas were made in order because at the end of the day, even if you have enough people to run elections once or twice in the budget cycle, if you don't have the people to process those elections in the office, then it's no good.
But you do have enough people to process an election.
With the 2 part-time.
You have 2 full-time and you have 2 part-time now. And that's what you had in the last 2 elections,
Yes.
which is
And we've made it happen, but
Right.
it has not been something.
right. So when we get into the budget hearing, we'll talk about increase in staff and all that kind of stuff and
Correct.
all the duties coming down from the state. But
Correct.
as the mayor indicated, you were fully funded for 2 elections
Right.
and processing those 2 elections.
Based on what we have done. But
Well,
the thing is when we have to focus all of our attention on completing the responsibilities at the state level,
that haven't changed.
you're right, they haven't changed, but there's things that go undone because you can only focus so much attention on one thing at a time. If we have to put in voter history, which takes weeks because we do it manually, then that means other things are being put at the wayside while we focus on that responsibility because we have a time limit to get that done. So then it's playing catch up, trying to get those things done, and you're always in catch up mode. You're always behind. And again, I'm not here to argue about budget. I'm
No.
just simply, trying to make it clear that the movement of the budget of these numbers is just because we need the extra office personnel. And so we don't have a 3rd full-time, but we've got 2 part-times in there working, helping to try to keep things above water. And so we're moving money out of other line items where we've cut and made sacrifices in those lines in order to fulfill these because the office has requirements that we have to meet.
But
And-
again, you're not increasing staff.
We're moving money from
I
other
get,
line
I get,
items
the, I
to the
get,
salary
I
line
get the,
items.
I get the change in classification of a full-time. I get that part.
Yes.
But the number of warm bodies has not increased over there. So when you say that you got historicals to do and all that kind of stuff, what your requirements are and the personnel that you have has not changed.
Correct. But even last year's budget, we had 2 part-times that were working. That's-
Exactly. And you also had 2 full-times.
Correct.
So all you're doing here,
We're just moving money.
if you were moving money because you had an additional person because you had different new responsibilities, that's one thing. But you're saying you got new responsibilities, and
I didn't say we had new responsibilities. I said we have responsibilities.
you're
from-
shifting work. Everybody has to go through that. I mean, that's a welcome to the workforce.
I've been in the workforce for quite some time. I understand that those are things that happen. And again,
So
I'm not
the-
here to talk about budget because that's
This is all about budget. So $700 is now going into deputies. Where will that it's going into line 106. Who's paid out of 106?
me now, the full-time person.
So you're getting.
But again, that's
you're
why
getting
I'm also
$700
saying
more now.
that's why I'm also saying that I came into paying bills recently, and after discussing it with Mayor Davis, I have seen where there have things have not been paid appropriately in the sense of out of the particular line item that the auditors like to see. So there have been multiple paychecks, personnel being paid out of a deputy line. So what I'm doing now is I'm trying to correct those numbers and make them set so that the one person, me, can be paid for the rest of the budget cycle out of the deputies line, which is the correct line item that I should be paid out.
Right. Now, I agree. We'll save those kind of conversations for the budget hearing process for the next budget. I was told, and you can correct me if I'm wrong now, Rachel, I'm not trying to put you into a tough spot, is that there's a certain bottom line of how much was appropriated to elections, your account.
Yes.
Add up all your 100s, 200s, 300s, all of them, and there was a certain expense number that you would not go over that. And that's what I was told.
That's why we're moving money.
All right.
Yeah, get it.
Do we have a motion and a second? I'm sorry. Do we have a motion and a second? All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Passes 5-0. Continue on, and this is
Appreciate it.
going into part-time, which is 169 of 2,517.01. So your part-time person is now getting more money, which has nothing to do with,
This is where some of our part-time has been being paid out of election workers instead of out of the this is all about the lines. We're being paid out of the wrong lines.
Yeah.
So I'm just having to move money to correct those balances. I
but
came
you're
in,
moving it from print and stationary. If they were paid out of election workers, I get the shifting money from election workers to part-time, so they're paid appropriately out of line, but no one's ever been paid out of a print and stationary line.
correct. But again, this was more of, you had multiple people being paid out of a deputy line when there should have only been one person paid. I'm trying to correct that, which means looking at the entire budget and the balance that I need to pay off the deputy for the rest of the budget cycle and the part-time personnel that has been paid out of other lines. I'm moving money out of lines that we don't need it out of to cover and correct the balances in the two salary lines that we'll be paying correctly out of. I know it's
Okay.
a little confusing coming
No,
out
I
of the
get it.
lines, but
Trust me, I get it.
I'm just trying to make, I came on not a clean slate, and I'm trying to clean it up so it looks a little messy right now.
The only, you move 8,000 from election workers, is that we haven't gone through all the amendments. The other ones are communication and print,
I believe
and
those
that's
are
it, okay.
I believe those are the only lines that money was moved.
And then you move another on the next amendment coming up, you move another $848 from communication to part-time. So 2,517 plus 848 is
I believe it's about 3,300 being moved overall to to part-time,
for the part-time person.
to the part-time
To
line,
the
yes.
All right, we're on page 65. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment? I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Mason. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. The next one is a continuation. Pretty much the same thing, except that it's coming from communication over to part-time for $848. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment? I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Slater. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. And that concludes the Election Commission amendments. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, guys. Sorry.
So I wanted to, before Renee, I want to say this, because I think it's important since there's been, and when we funded the Election Commission budget, we funded, whoever can hear me, we funded to have 2 full elections in this budget cycle. They have an August, which is the primary for the state and federal, and then in November, which is the general for state and federal. We put enough money in there to have 2 full elections. And the full election is defined as early voting, 3 precincts, the south side, the election office right across the street, and Bradley Square Mall. And the same for the election commissioners chose by a vote of 5-0 to not have a south side. But they had enough money, and they recognized that they had enough money. They had to make some decisions. Apparently in August, they had a tough time finding people, so they increased the per day on election workers from 115 to 145. That is 100% their decision to make. It's not for us. That's how they do. But I think it's important for the public to know this commission funded 2 full elections and the supporting staff and the processing. The election commission is well within their rights to change things how they want to, but it's also within their rights to adhere or take people's comments and criticism if they didn't see that was what it is not on the county commission. I'm not a finger pointer, but we did fund it properly. And I think it's important because we've all heard the comments and we see social media. I know we shouldn't pay attention, but I don't like misinformation out there when I know different. Okay, I think it's important to know that we funded 2 elections, and elections are very important to us all. All right, I'm not going to belabor the point, but if there's any questions that, we will be chatting during the budget hearing. All right.
The rest of them are services.
Are the rest of them are services rendered? Thank you, Mayor. Page 66 through
88.
88. Thank you, Mayor. We take these up as a package. Services rendered from the Bradley County Sheriff's Office. Do I have a motion to accept the package? Do I have a motion from Commissioner Alford? Do I have a second from Commissioner Winters? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. That concludes the budget amendments. We'll move into the agenda item B, which is the budget calendar. We don't have anybody. Oh, let me do this, if you guys, members, don't mind, because Rich is here and he's got something on item E. If you don't mind, let's go to item E, recognize Rich so he can give his report, and then we'll come back to budget calendar. That way Rich can go back to his hardworking day. Rich, I asked you here to, because you and I chatted a little bit on the state ankle bracelet monitoring and the status, and you have some concerns, so if you'll let us know.
Yes, we've had 2 individuals that have been declared indigent that we put on the ankle monitor. We started in October trying to recoup the money that was due us for the ankle monitor. Needless to say, as the mayor always reminds me, working with the state is not an easy process. It took us until just recently to be notified that one of our claims had finally been accepted. We had a difficulty in the forms. They didn't give us the correct forms. We used the indigent form from the court. They didn't accept that. They wanted another indigent form, so we submitted that. We were denied. I called 5 consecutive days, leave a message, got no response. Finally, called somebody else, and she said, well, you've got the wrong form. So in that process, I asked, was there anybody else that can access this money from Bradley County to the Treasury Department on the 50-50 match? And lo and behold, she sent me a form saying that the Family Collision had accessed this 50-50 match.
Let me stop you there. I hate to, but who is Family Collision?
Family Collision is a entity that puts on interlock devices on vehicles that are required to have an interlock device for a DUI conviction.
Interlock.
It has nothing to do with electronic monitoring whatsoever. So my understanding is the 50-50 match is just a Bradley County code, and anybody within Bradley County can access that. They don't separate the identity as Bradley County Probation. So TRM could access it, Family Collision accessed it. So after I found out about that, I called Mylan and I called Mayor Davis, and my suggestion would be that we not do the 50-50 match. Not if they're gonna let other entities access that money.
Well, let's chat about that, because the 50-50 match allows us to put ankle bracelets on those that the judge has deemed indigent and keep them out. If they're nonviolent, we know all the criteria that has to be met, and we would much rather them be on ankle bracelets than incarcerated, right? So would we wouldn't be giving up that, or?
Well,
I mean, and the whole concept of that is that they couldn't afford the ankle bracelet. Otherwise, they wouldn't be declared indigent.
I have an alternative for that, but.
Please.
Well, my suggestion would be, if you're gonna do a 50-50 match, that you put that money in my account and let me budget it. And if somebody's declared indigent by the court, then we would charge them the minimum that we're getting charged by Buddy and the GPS. So it's not, county's not losing any money, but they're still required to pay some, just like if a court declares somebody indigent as far as an attorney fee, they still charge them $50, $100, $200. So we're getting charged $4.80 a day for the GPS or electronic monitoring. We would charge the defendant $4.80 so that we wouldn't be paying money.
But the real problem is that the state is paying invoices that we believe they shouldn't be paying.
Correct.
That's the issue, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Mayor, it was unbeknownst to me
they,
that there was other people that could access this.
We never entered into an agreement or contract or any kind of thing like that. It was just the state let us know that they're no longer funding full we heard about it, what, 2 or 3 years ago when this all happened? We decided to put 10,000 or earmark it, and they would match it, the 10,000. And for ankle bracelets, we would have a maximum of 20,000. So now they are changing the rules?
And that, well, yeah, you might say that. They may have been there all along. We didn't realize it. Now that we've had 2 or 3 to go through the process, because we didn't have any the first year or two.
Correct.
And now that we've had some, we're finding out, yeah, they're people outside of Bradley County government. Other entities can access it, like the one that made you perk up a minute ago. They can, according to what they're telling us now. So this isn't really a question for today, more at budget, but what we're thinking about is let's just put our 10,000 somewhere,
Yeah.
whether it be in his, and then when we have a true indigent person that's affecting Bradley County, they pay their part, and we've got an amount set aside that we'll continue to do this, and if it's a decent number, we can still fund it, which so far it hadn't been that many anyway. If the judge declares them, whatever you call it, and then we do it and we use it out of this other
I see
line,
what
and
you're
that way
saying.
these other entities can't have access to it.
I see what you're saying,
Yeah.
because
The only
that would eliminate the state giving, quote unquote, and it's not really our money, but it was money that they set side by side with us, and
their half's not ours, but we're setting aside half local money for it. So our match is local money. So
yeah.
we put our local match in our budget somewhere and continue to do it with that same amount of money. Again, we're controlling who gets it. It's only people that we
Yeah,
put on
so
the indigent.
if we go down that suggestion, then the state can't award for
Right.
car, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We would notify them whenever they ask us in June that we no longer want to participate. We come off their list and, right.
Yeah. How much has the state awarded out of their quote unquote 10,000?
Well, this particular item were for $115.99. The most that they will give us on a monthly basis is $200.
The most that they will give us is $200.
$200
on a monthly basis. So the 10,000 you'll never hit anyway.
Probably not.
I mean, 200
unless
times
we-
12. I mean,
Yeah, well, not unless we get a lot more. I mean, Judge Collins is putting a lot more on
oh, is that per
pretrial.
that's per
Per.
Per
individual? Okay, my
yeah.
bad. I was going to say if they only
Yeah.
give us $200,
Yeah.
we don't have to do 10,000. All right, get you. So this is a budgeting issue for 23, 24.
Right.
But you were just making us aware of it. That's what you.
Yes.
All right.
Well, and the other question I have, so since
I
they.
mean, right now the program is intact, but how many out of the 10,000 we have, how many indigents have you had?
Two.
Just the
Two.
two.
And what was the total cost?
$200 on this one. We're still waiting on the other one to
So
get
the
approved.
state should have $200, or is it?
Well, they
100?
reimbursed us our 200. My question is, how do I get the 200 from the county since it's been earmarked and not set?
Oh, it's in our.
There is a
599,
line
right?
in the commission's budget that has the 10,000. They're $599. So if you're out $500, you got 200 from the state. The other three would be requesting it from their $599.
So I just do an invoice.
We'll amend it over if we need to put it. Is it in your account? Is that where the expenditure came from?
Yes.
I mean, we can just amend it over, and I will look into just go ahead and putting the 10,000 in a line in your account, so you don't have to come over to
It
599.
would be a lot simpler because you missed the part about how complicated it is dealing with
I
the
mean,
state.
Yeah, you're not going to buy anything else with it, so
No.
so.
I
go
mean, it's
ahead and-
taken us 3 months to just to get $200.
Yeah, so in the next budget, I don't know if you have to have a special line, the auditors. Yeah, that's what we'll do, Rich. We'll just allocate if we continue with the 10,000 in the program with the state, I think our legislators should know that state is giving money to anybody who sends them an invoice.
Yeah.
I might send them an invoice.
And Rich, if you get the other one approved, you may have a $400 bill. You would need to send that to Renee so that she can get finance next month to approve amending it over to your line.
Yeah.
We've not done that before in the 3-year period. This is the first
I
one,
know.
so.
I mean, I'm glad we're using ambulance because that keeps them out of jail and a cheaper alternative. But
Well, the majority that we've had recently from Judge Collins, they've made $100,000 bonds, so obviously they're not indigent.
no, well,
So,
I'll let you guys handle the judicial piece. I got enough with across the
thank you.
street.
Any more questions?
Any other questions for Rich on ankle bracelets and funding and what we may or may not do in the future? Then, thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
All right, so that's item F there. Now we'll go back to the budget calendar. You have the budget calendar on page 91. And this is one of my favorite topics to talk to the mayor about.
One of my favorite topics, period.
Believe it or not, it is that time of the year, the budgeting process. And the first thing that we have to do is adopt a budget calendar. And also in doing so, we need to bring up what the finance committee is going to ask of the departments and elected officials on their budget request. But Lori and I looked over the budget calendar, and it's pretty much with the new dates. Obviously, as we're in year 23, is before. The mayor will present his budget to the full commission on June 5th. And then we on finance have our fund day, emphasize fun, on that Thursday on June 7th. We won't use that term mega meeting, but that's what it is. All right. No, I take that back on the 8th. I'm sorry, I said 7th. Renee has to have all of the true ups to us by close of business on the 7th. Wink, wink. And then the finance committee will review the mayor's budget on Thursday, June 8th. And we'll start at 9, but that is subject to change.
Can I make one request for you to look at? Has everyone checked their calendar with all these dates? I hesitate to even request, but if it was possible, one tiny change I would like to make that I didn't make in this copy you see is budget hearings you've got scheduled for Tuesday the 18th. Is there any way you would consider doing them on Thursday the 13th of April?
Budget hearing, that's when we pull an elected official and have a chat with them on the 13th?
And you do it at 1 o'clock, you easily get them all in one day. You won't even need that second date, but the request is to change it from 18 to 13, if that doesn't cause a problem for anyone.
Give me 1 second, Mayor. Yeah, he's asking on the 18th of April, which is a Tuesday, to go to the 13th.
Yeah, which is a
and we will,
Thursday.
at that point, so we will have had the budget request to us for quite some time. I mean, I say quite some time, relative. We get the request on April 3rd.
April 3rd is when you schedule them. That still gives them 10 days to prepare.
I'm looking for the day that we get the budget request. Okay, so we get them on the 20th. So all we lose is basically that 1, 2, 3, 4 days. I'm okay with it, but I'm gonna look to the others, especially we got 3 new members, maybe. That this is. Let me a second. This is when we get the budget request. You guys have all been on the commission, but this is the first time on finance. The budget request will come in. The mayor will hand them out that night, and then it's our time to basically go over all the requests A to Z. And what you're doing when you review these is basically, however you see fit, looking to see who you want to bring into the hearings. So some do a very, very good job and very thorough. Some not as thorough. We'll just say that. So that's what's going on at this period of time. The budget requests to come in. while this is all going, the mayor's doing his part, getting ready for his proposal, which will come later. But what we're doing is we're basically looking to see, do we have any further discussions beyond what was put in the budget request?
And what you will,
And I'll say it for myself. Obviously, I've gone through this, and Commissioner Alford has 8 times. He's a little bit more. I've got a pattern of how I go through it, but I want to be, cognizant of the fact that you guys are going through it for the first time. But I think the 13th, from the time that we get them on March 20th to the 13th of April, is enough time.
until the 3rd for you to make a decision, then that gives them 10 more days if they're called into budget hearings. But what you will find nowadays, in the last few years, most everybody does a really good job of telling you everything in their request, and so you end up calling very few people to budget hearings. Some out of the size of the department you may request, but they'll answer all the questions in their budget requests that you receive, and so you can decide up or down without bringing them to hearings. So you end up usually with only 4 or 5. And those 4 or 5 will have 10 days from the day you announce till that day. The main thing is, can you meet on the 13th versus the 18th? Yeah.
So, Commissioner Slater, please.
So on March the 16th, which is in 39 days from today, every department, sheriff, roads, everybody, their budget requests are due.
They're due
Exactly.
to us.
Everybody in this budget that we will be putting in the resolution is due. There's
Except,
to you.
except for schools.
Except for schools.
Susan's given an extra couple of weeks. Everybody's will come to me on the 16th, and then I get them to you on Monday the 20th. And then you get to study them for a week or 2 weeks to decide who you want to bring to budget hearings.
right. Schools, I apologize, Susan. Because they've got to go through a school board
Yeah.
process as well.
Yeah.
After the board approves theirs will come to you, and you'll have a work session to go over theirs with them too.
So
That
I'm
date's fine with me.
gonna look for a nod on Commissioner Alford, Commissioner Winters. That's all we're doing that's his request.
And I don't think it will affect any of the departments at all, other than I don't want you all saying I can't be there on the 13th because you moved it. I want to make sure everybody
I have a
can.
dentist appointment, but I'll change it
I
for
gotta
you.
rearrange
You had
my
a dentist
cycle.
appointment.
But I'll change it for you.
For me, you'll change it? Okay. I'm not really asking you to change it if you have a problem, but if you don't have a problem, I'd like for you to.
All right, so we're gonna make that change in here, and we'll vote on the calendar here in a second. The next thing, as I was mentioning, is the mayor's proposal will come to the full commission, and then we meet on that Thursday. Is there any opportunity to expand that?
What day are we down to? I lost you there.
I was trying to be funny. It didn't work.
Yeah,
No.
as long as you don't have a mega meeting, I don't care what you do.
Now, we get your proposal on Monday night, and then on Thursday, we have to, any changes we want to make to the mayor's proposal on that Thursday. I've always said for the last, 5, 6 years, I wish we had more time.
Yeah, that's a very busy week. Marlon always says that. You've got something you got to do on Wednesday. That's
take
when you
that.
get the final budget amendments, and then you'll meet to review mine proposal, and then you'll go over the final budget amendments. So you've got end of the year amendments, and you've got my budget proposal all on you that week. So bottom line is the week of June the 5th, please don't have anything on your calendar because it will be busy. There can't be more time between my presentation and your going over my proposal because we get into the following week and it messes that up there. So that's why he always has that 3-day window there. But at that point, you have it balanced. You just got to go see if your pet projects got as much as you wanted or if your anti-pet projects got more than you wanted, that kind of thing. And then you have that opportunity on the 7th, 8th to make those changes.
But that's why it seems to take a long time that day when we get into pet projects and stuff like that.
It's
I had to
ample
ask-
time as long as you don't do a mega meeting, as he calls it, the mega meeting. And, 1 year predates all of you guys. The Finance Committee wanted to go through every budget.
Well,
Well,
we
that was
still
a true
do.
mega meeting, and that was, but he
Mayor,
went,
we still do go through all of them. It's just that
well, you
if-
go through, anybody want to change anything, anybody want to change anything, and that's
well,
okay,
and,
but,
and if they want to stop, we stop.
right.
But if they don't want to stop, why go over every line, every account?
And see, most of the things, I know you hear me say it all the time, but it's true. I know kind of what you're wanting and not wanting to do, so most of those things are
Yeah.
addressed already, and
That's-
so there ends up not being many issues.
Well, having the account analysis report helps a lot now because then I can see basically how they looked at that point in time, how they spent money.
And doing what she did here today helps a lot too, because last year that happened at the last minute. That's major.
So that's it. And then that takes us into the day that we actually, our responsibility as county commissioners, the two that we have to do by law is pass a balanced budget by resolution and set the tax rate. And that will be on July 3rd. When is July 3rd? Is that a Monday, Tuesday? When we run into July 4th holiday? Monday. And then the holidays the Tuesday. So hopefully nobody's like, I'm gonna start my 4th of July holiday on the 2nd, and I'm gonna bypass the 3rd.
So it is Monday the 3rd, right? So that very last T on your thing is an M. Sorry about that.
I was gonna vote on this and then get to that. But how's everybody thinking on the calendar? Is that, I wanna be super conscious that this is your first time, Lindy, Commissioner Slade? Commissioner Mason, Commissioner Winters, this is your first go through, but you guys have seen us do it because you were on the commission already. But you're getting ready to find out being on finance is fun. All right. We've made those changes. Lori, you've made those changes to your page on the 18th of April is going to be moved to
13th.
And I assume the time of the day is going to be fine on that as well on the 13th, Mayor.
Yeah.
But the times, I may adjust those and get Lori as we get closer to those. So we're going to, instead of the 18th, we'll have the 13th and make the change that July 3rd, is a Monday instead of a T. Just a typo, really.
And,
Right.
and just if I could mention on the 20th, we
Of-
never use that date anymore, but it's there in case you were to call a lot of people to budget hearings. And rather than stay all night on the 13th, we have the 20th set aside for
Yeah, I
more.
don't think we've ever, since I've been on, ever used that second.
We
day.
haven't since the year that they wanted to bring every single department into budget hearings, and that was about 20 years ago.
If needed, yeah. All right. So do I have a motion to accept the budget calendar 23-24 budget preparation calendar? I have a motion from Commissioner Slater. I have a second from Commissioner Alford. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And Lori, I can present this to the full commission tonight. Now, as Renee was alluding to, when she sends out the budget preparation request, we ask for certain information. Over the years, we've asked for new stuff and stuff. You guys looked at this. Is there any changes that you would like to ask? Is there any additional information on here? I'll look to some nods or want to speak to this. Commissioner Mason, Commissioner Slater, Commissioner Alford, Commissioner Winters. Is there anything that you would like? Mayor, the only thing that I would like to add to it, and this is with the school system, because we got into some confusion last year, if this is possible, is on the schools, when, and Susan's here, when the schools talks about their revenue, they have their budgeted and then what their projection is. but it never has any room for the actuals. And specifically what I'm getting at is last year's sales tax. If you looked at what was budgeted from one year to what they projected the next year, it was a humongous increase. But it actually wasn't, because the actual came in much higher from that point in time to her projection. That's why it was such. Is there any way to, Susan, opine, if you will, that the actuals on your revenue that you at that point in time, I know you're not finished with the year, that we can have a better idea, so there doesn't look like there's this big discrepancy. Well, not discrepancy, variance between the two that you budgeted one year and your projection in the next year. Please.
Because the way that we budget, we actually run multiple years on our spreadsheet is how we look at it. So I have the data available. There's just not anything in the format for us to put it into. The other thing I mentioned to you that I thought might help with this situation is audit has never required us to amend our budget for revenue. If revenue comes in high, we've just always let it go. And we've talked about that can also affect the county's MOE if we amend that. However, I have talked to Ellen, and we're going to try to do an amendment closer to the end of the year so that the budget will more closely align with what we think is actually going to happen. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
I don't understand the MOE piece of it, but that's a whole different discussion.
Yeah, I sent you that thing from the state, and that's one reason we have to adjust our expenditures so that we don't go over on that.
Right.
But if we see that revenue's coming in higher than what we originally projected, we have not gone back and amended that revenue unless we needed it to cover an expense. Does that make sense?
Right. I'm just. Right. She doesn't. That's why I
don't believe so, because when we get the board approval on Thursday, because they have a different format they have asked for. So when we get that approved, then before we send it over to you on Friday, we rekey all of that into your document, and there is no place for actuals or estimated of what it's going to do that year.
Right.
But why couldn't it?
Yeah.
Whenever you convert it to our format, obviously that column hasn't been in the what we gave them, but it should be.
Yeah. That would be.
Fantastic.
We would love to do that, because
that would eliminate a lot of confusion.
So simplify some of the questions I'm getting.
Yes.
And I get it. When I start looking at that, I'm like, man, that really doesn't tell them a lot. But now, do you also want me to go ahead and amend that revenue before the end of the year? Is that what you're saying all of y'all do?
We do, yes.
Yeah. We never have. But I'm not opposed to that, and I actually had already decided we were going to do it this year, because I do think it will help commissioners as they're looking at it, so that when I say we're increasing it by 5%, they're not looking at it and say, that's 11%, that's not 5%, because they're looking at original budget to original budget.
Right. It makes your numbers more, I hate to use the word realistic, but it's kind of that way. I mean, there's nothing funny going on, but it's more just-in-time numbers, like we just found out with your fund balances through the audit book versus, and oh, by the way, we've already amended that fund balance, that money out into the expense lines. But according to the audit, it looks like you had your projection and then your actual was 6 million or something like
Right.
that. Doing what you're suggesting, I think would be good. Hate to put more burden on you, but it makes
I
makes
feel
life a lot
in the
easier
long
for us.
run, it'll be time well spent
Yeah.
because I do believe it will be more.
Let's do
It'll
that.
look more transparent to all of the commission. Now, grant you, I will need to go back to Dr. Cash and make sure that I can't speak out of turn, but as far as I'm concerned, we'd be more than glad to do that. We just never knew that was part of our document.
We can make it a formal request if you need that.
I don't think we will need that,
Okay.
but
All right, so
I just don't want to overstep,
that's the only thing that I would like to change from last year to this year is on the schools, and it's just it clears things up a little bit. You got anything? We can bring it up if you want. Yeah, you'll have some answers by then. All right. All right. We voted on the calendar, and that's the only change as far as the budget. I mean, I would like to emphasize that the election officials and department heads use the form that you send and not their own little pre-cut one, because when you're going through there, it's not consistent. Anyway, anything else on that? Seeing none, I don't think we have to vote on that, do we, Mayor? You're good? All right, that takes care of the budget calendar, item B. Then we get into HCI Committee funding recommendations. As you know, the committee just finished up their process, and they have formalized their recommendation to the Finance Committee and ultimately to the full commission. I'm going to ask the administrator of the HCI Committee to give us a rundown on what is being recommended from this committee. Lori? You need a microphone real quick. Thank you.
Okay, so the HCI committee met and, they received seven applications, and all of those are found on page 2 of your agenda packet. The committee voted to recommend fully funding 3 of the projects. That's Michigan Avenue PTO playground upgrade and relocation at a cost of $25,000. Prospect School outdoor classroom extension, $28,361.76. And Truesdale School outdoor shade structure, $23,319. These 3 projects total $76,681, with a pot of $109,000 to grant out this year. This recommendation leaves approximately $32,000 in the pot still available. And certainly they may be rolled over to next year, which we have done in past years, not regularly, but it has been done. I know some of you have questions regarding the projects not recommended for funding. I've received a few telephone calls, and what I attempted to do on page 2 is give you just a very brief overview of some comments and maybe why they weren't funded. For instance, Parks and Rec disc golf. The committee determined that the grant application did not explain that it was an identified need. The Veterans Honor Guard request for fuel, insurance, and repairs simply does not meet the depreciable schedule set by the IRS and required by our HCI guidelines. Same thing with museum center sound panels. They just don't meet our regulations of our HCI. And let me interject right here, a side note. Bradley County HCI is more bricks and mortar type projects. They're more capitalistic projects, whereas United Way, and you'll recall they did receive some of the funds from the sale of the proceeds of the sale of the hospital. Their funds are for more programming projects. So for instance, if someone wants to get some curriculum and teach something about fitness, that kind of thing, then that would be something that's covered. More things that meet their guidelines. And then lastly, City of Charleston has not yet completed their 2021 HCI project that we approved. Certainly, they will be welcome to apply again next year. They were granted a 6-month extension to their contract, which ends June the 30th. And by the time they get that completed, it'll be almost time to reapply. I think we usually accept applications in August or September, so they'll be more than welcome to submit a new application at that time.
All right. Anybody have any questions or comments? We have to do our part and make a recommendation to the full commission. Commissioner Mason.
I just want to recognize the Veterans Honor Guard. I mean, I don't know where we can find that money. I think John Thompson, he'd called me last week, and I think he'd asked for $10,000 for fuel insurance and uniforms. I mean, I can't bring it out of HCI, I understand that, but I wished we could find a line somewhere. They do really good services for our families in our community.
Thank you. Any other Commissioner Winters?
What other groups applied for this? Do we have a?
Yes, on page, let's see, I think I listed them all. Page 2, the Parks and Rec Disc Golf. Bradley County Veterans Honor Guard for their fuel and insurance and uniform and van maintenance. City of Charleston, the Hoyt Ferry Municipal Park expansion. Cleveland Bradley Regional Museum, the sound panels. Michigan Avenue PTO move and update playground. Prospect School outdoor classroom extension and Truesdale School outdoor shade structure. They're all listed on page 2.
This is the total group that applied. Wow, I would have thought there would be more. It was advertised pretty good, right? I mean, places like Art is Here, you know, they're looking for a building. You'd think it's kind of surprising.
Hey, Commissioner Slater, please.
So on the two that say they don't meet the 5-year depreciable schedule set by the IRS, did they fill out did they just fill out the initial paperwork or complete paperwork?
They complete all of the applicants on page 2 completed a letter of intent, and all of those applicants were invited to submit full application package.
So did their letter of intent, did the committee know from their letter of intent what their project was?
They did.
So why would they have them fill out a complete packet knowing good and well it wasn't going to meet the guidelines?
I don't know that I can speak for the committee on their thoughts on that one. They weren't clearly articulated during the committee.
I think that by doing that, that gives false hope to people that they're going to be awarded money when the committee knows at the beginning that they're not going to be awarded money. I mean, I've heard a lot of comments regarding the museum. I get it. It doesn't meet the criteria, and I understand that, but I don't think they do, and they were funded last year. So I would just recommend going forward, or, you know, ask the committee if it doesn't meet the criteria. We don't ask them to fill out a complete packet of information. It's a waste of that group's time to do that, and it's a waste of your all's time to ask them to do it because it's not going to pass.
Please.
The park in Charleston, where are they on their other project? They have not completed it, so they can't get more money. Is it finding people to work? Is it contract? Is there a reason that they hadn't spent that money?
As I understand it, there have been a number of reasons, Commissioner Winters, that has stalled that project. And I think the committee took those reasons into consideration. I know, in the past, I will say, historically speaking, there have been organizations that, even though they still have a project ongoing, they do receive funding. But but I don't think that they've had the snafus the city of Charleston has experienced this year.
Yeah, why add more money if they're still unable to move forward? Probably smart to do. Yeah.
And again,
get
they are welcome to apply the next grant cycle.
Yeah, and I'll speak. I met with them the other day, and they're kind of getting back on track here in February. And then they assured me that they would be within budget, and they would have this project completed by their extension time that they were awarded, that they were given. But I understand. I mean, we have done awards for projects that they haven't quite finished up. It was usually because of supply issues and things that nature. This is more, we'll just leave it at this, on a personnel issue level that rendered a little bit more decision making. I think it's fair. And when I chat with him, I was like, by the time you get this done, it'll be at the end of June, call it July, enjoy the rest of summer, and then August, the process starts up again and be ready for this. So, and it gives them also a chance to revamp their numbers because obviously inflation and the cost of goods and stuff like that may change, probably will change. They can give a better grant process. One of the things that the chairman spoke to me is that they were concerned that they didn't ask for enough for the project that they were asking for. So it gives them a chance to do that. I initially wasn't too happy about it, but that's what good communication does, is you clear up things, right? But I will say this, and I'm gonna put your chairman of policy. I would like, if you would, Chairman Winters, to, in your policy, because this is, we have a formal recommendation right here that we're going to take up here in a second. But to Commissioner Slater's point, the two that basically did not meet, I think we can all agree, we don't have to belabor the point, that should have been, as the saying goes, nipped in the bud right from the beginning. I'll say the beginning, but they should have never passed go to collect $200, right? If we need to put that as a policy so that everybody's on the same sheet of music, I think that would make it better. Was there another policy change that I can't remember, I'm brain dead. The other thing is the 32,000 that is outstanding, so to speak. They have asked if we would consider allowing them to go into a quote unquote mini grant process. And let me stop right there. Can you explain what the mini grant process is, or what they think they're asking? Or if you want me to continue on and not put you on the spot, I'll get it.
There have not, I know this, I'll go back to my time here. 10 years offered mini grants. I don't know if they did prior to time or not, but I would assume that it would be small scale capital projects in the amount of $5,000 or less. Maybe 6 or 7, since we've got $30,000 in the pot remaining. That we would open it back up. As we sit today, it's February 6th. So that would mean we would do a mini cycle spring and summer.
Commissioner Slater, please.
Same process.
So they have asked us to consider that. Please.
Are there thoughts of what mini grants? Anybody on the committee have ideas of what would be acceptable for a mini grant?
I think just as I stated, I mean, we have to stay within the guidelines of the Bradley County HCI program, which again is capital project. So it would have to be some type of small scale capital project. I would think no more than $6,000 or $7,000.
And keep in mind, that's not going to affect those two. Those two need to go apply to United Way where they're not capital projects. That was the agreement early on, is we would do capital projects. And I'm sorry, but as much as they need a van and maintenance on that van, that's a donation. That's not a capital project. So they can turn around and request it at the proper place, which is non-capital projects, United Way, which is still the same pot of money. I mean, same money. It's just they got theirs to use for non-capital, and we got ours to use for capital. That was the agreement early on.
Great. And these two
No.
that were rejected could apply to
They-
United Way.
Right.
Certainly they may.
That would be the proper thing for them to do. It's not that they're not bad, they're not good projects. But now the other two, Charleston, like they said, by the time they're through, it's gonna be time for the next application. So that only leaves Bradley Parks. Should they do them anything and better explain? I don't know why they didn't better explain to start with, but,
Yeah, I get
I
you.
don't know that a mini one would help in that one because they need
Well,
more than the mini amount, I guess you would say.
I'll go ahead and give you my 2 cents for what it's worth. I appreciate all ideas, I do, but we just talked about here in the budget process, we got a calendar now. That's gonna start here in a couple of weeks. And you're getting ready to find out how busy the finance committee is and the full commission during the budget time. From now, March till June, we're busy. This is our time. That's why HCI takes this up in the fall, because we're quote unquote not as busy. Not that we're not sitting around, but we're not as busy because budgets. And Lori does a lot of work with the HCI starting in August till about the holidays. Quite frankly, I'll be to the point. I don't think she has time to do a mini grant because I know I send a lot of requests for Lori, especially when those budget requests come in. I'll have Lori look up this, that, and the other and start working on spreadsheets. So my point is, I don't think we have time to do mini grants right now because we're getting ready to do budget process, and I need Lori, who's the administrator of the HCI, working for us on budget items. That's my 2 cents, but please opine on it if you feel different. And the 32,000 will roll over, and whatever Renee tells us in August that the next year of HCI funding, from what I understand, it's with the interest rates we heard about earlier, it should be a little bit more. Add 32,000 to it, and we'll have a good time in fall. How's that? All right. That's my 2 cents. But please, Commissioner Slater, Commissioner Mason, Commissioner Alford, if you guys feel different, that's.
I
Mr.
feel
Alford?
very strongly the same way as you. We don't need to mess with mini grants at this point in time. It's way too late in the year to even fool with it. And with the committee also. I'd soon either roll it over or put it into a project that the commission has in mind somewhere.
I just say roll it over, and August will be here before you know it. Commissioner Mason, Commissioner Slater. All right, it sounds like you have Commissioner Mason, many grants. All right, so Lori, if you'll let the committee know, thank you for thinking outside the box. But at this time, we're just going to let the 32 and whatever the amount is roll over, and it'll be added on to the amount that's awarded in the fall. All right. That should do it. You got your policy on.
On how we,
Would you all please
how we communicate.
make a motion to either
Oh.
accept or amend this recommendation so that we can take it to the full commission later?
Yep. Sorry. We do need to make a formal recommendation to the full commission. Remember, this is where if you want to take something away, add something, take the whole thing, take none of it, this is the chance to do that. You want to decrease the amounts, whatever you want to do on here. The floor is open. You don't have to be recognized. Commissioner Slater, please.
So I read in the paper or saw somewhere that the city's getting ready to put a disc golf course in over at Fletcher Park. So they didn't feel like this was they didn't feel like, I think you said the application had an identified need. Is that what you said?
That's what was quoted in the meeting, that there wasn't data to prove that there is a need for this in the community. I know in the past we've had other projects, and they were actually referred to those where there were studies done and said that pickleball, actually, we have this many pickleball groups in the community. We only have this many courts. we have this many players. They actually presented a petition with people who signed it saying we want these courts. But that's where they leaned back to that other one, said we wish that the disc golf had something like this in their.
Any others? All right, do I have a motion to accept the formal recommendation from the HCI Committee? I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Mason. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Am I getting that right? I want to make sure everybody's good. All right, Lori, if you'll help me out on that, we'll take care of finalizing that this evening. That should conclude item C on there. Pleasant Grove Lane Water Fund application. Lori, that's also for you to explain to. And the gentleman's not
Okay,
here,
he's
so.
not here. I did receive an application from a Mr. Sherlin, Charles Sherlin, down on Pleasant Grove Lane in McDonald, Tennessee, and I believe that application is a part of your packet on page 3. Mr. Sherlin believes the proximity of his property to the landfill has compromised the purity of his well water. And so he is submitting this application to get water lines run to his property. I know you're going to ask, I did ask if he's done testing on his well, and
Yeah.
he has not. So I don't know if it's, he didn't say that it was a muddy well or anything like that, just that he believes that it's been tainted.
I am absolutely 100% all in favor of water. I have been since the day I got here. I will continue. But if there's going to be, in my opinion, an accusation or an assertion made, we need to follow up with due diligence. So I think, my opinion, everything's my opinion, that he needs to do some kind of testing from a credible resource, and we look at the results and then make a decision. But that's just my opinion. Plus, I mean, we have done projects. What is the amount of this project estimate?
Our part,
37.5 for how many households?
2.
Huh? Yeah, I mean,
Has Cleveland Utilities even agreed to do it? They've
They've
agreed to do
committed.
any at 50/50?
well,
They've committed they've committed 1870.
this still comes out of ARP money. So they agreed to do 50/50 until we finished up ARP money. But
Well, up until there is a cap there.
Oh.
I believe 20,000.
Commissioner Winters.
How do we know at this point proximity of the dump and Spring Branch causes that? Well,
Oh, that's
I mean,
Till it's been tested.
you know, I know we've done with Spring Branch Industrial Park to ensure that there wasn't a water problem, and that we were staying away from the water.
he's on the other side of the interstate, right?
I don't know. I don't know where he is. But if he's going to make that assumption, there's got to be some proof this is happening.
So I don't want to speak for the committee, but Lori, if you'll communicate back to the applicant that some test results are going to be required to move further, I'd appreciate that.
I will.
Anybody else on this item? D. Commissioner Alford, Commissioner Mason, no? All right, moving on. Committee agenda access and or distribution. Lori, you will please.
I received a call recently from a constituent requesting open access to the Finance Committee packets, including all of the support documents. Keep in mind, Finance Committee packets are not available on the county's website, as are the commission agendas and minutes. The constituent also asked about being included on the email distribution list. You all know that I email every Friday afternoon to all of you, elected officials, department heads, media, our agenda packets, and they requested to be added to that distribution list. I spoke with our county attorney, and she said there's nothing that would prohibit that at this point. She doesn't see, but that we need to come up with a policy if we do add this constituent to our list. We need to develop a policy and adhere to it henceforth so that we're
Well, I'm gonna make a motion, we send this to the policy committee.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Well, I mean, for one, you don't want finance doing one thing and roads, education, and other committees doing another thing. I mean, one shoe fits all, right? So, whenever you have your committee meeting, if you'll put that as an agenda item, that'd be forever in your debt. Not really.
But-
Thank you, Lori.
huh?
State ankle braces, we already talked about. Last thing, this is super quick. You may have seen the opioid revenue. We have received some money. And I was just chatting with the mayor before the meeting. Quite frankly, we've received money, but we can't spend it because what? We don't know how, or they haven't given us guidelines to it. I find it interesting that they follow these lawsuits, win these lawsuits, but they never thought about how they one day would actually spend the money. So you'll see that there's revenue. Renee, I think you created an account for just this when we, right. So when you see that's on the reports that you see, it's quote unquote to be determined kind of thing. We'll wait for the guidelines from the state and then march forward after that. Mayor?
We, back in the fall, received a couple of times a very small amount. That's what he's referring to. We've gotten a little. That has gone into a line that will sit there until is determined how it can be spent. That's minimal. What you guys are obviously getting questioned about now from some people that think they have the answers is we have a bigger bucket of opioid money that will be coming, has not come yet. The state created, with the bigger amount of money, they created a council. They're keeping a percentage of it that they'll, I assume, grant out at some point, and they're sending a smaller percentage of that bucket to the various counties across the state. And at the same time, they created a council that will oversee all of that. But we've not received that big bucket of money that people are getting excited about, and we don't know. It's been explained to us in general terms. You can do it for this feel-good thing or this thing for treatment for these other things, but it's almost like ARP except at the state. We don't know those answers yet, and we have not received the money yet. So if one of those people calls you and says, okay, you got all this money, what are you going to do with it? We have not gotten it yet. The dribble that we got wasn't part of that bucket. We don't know why we got that dribble, but we did get it, and it's set aside, can't be spent until that is determined. So that's all we know to this point. I know you're getting calls. I've gotten some myself, but we don't know, and we haven't gotten it either yet. They have promised it in February, maybe February the 28th. I don't know.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, that should be it. Open floor on anything. Our next meeting will be March the, hold on,
6th also.
March the eyes of March, all right? All right. And we will have another conversation about the ratio study. It'll be more pertinent back on that, and some more discussion on art money. All right. If there's nothing else, I'm looking around, and we are adjourned. Thank you guys so much. See you tonight.